look professional? Did everything background look okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you look, dare I say, Jane, perfect.
You know what? But who else but women would ask, how do I look?
Right. I know. I said I have to change my shirt, and then I thought, no, come as you are. No.
Well, I was reading in the New York Times this Sunday, the hottest thing now, I'm going to put it on myself, is a Zoom shirt. So this shirt actually is hiding I have workout clothes underneath here, but it's my Zoom shirt. And so what all the executives are doing are buying shirts that don't wrinkle, that fit on the back of their chairs. And when they have a Zoom meeting, they pop their Zoom shirt on. And when the meeting is over, they take their Zoom shirt off. I think it's brilliant.
That. It's genius.
I have my non-Zoom pants on, so.
Well, I mean, that's it. Now the joke is that the Zoom shirts in the New York Times are like $175. Okay, so mine is not a $175 Zoom shirt, but I think it's the new thing. I love it.
We may have to come out with a budget Zoom shirt. That may be a new sales thing, Jane.
I think so. You know what? There it is. We could retire on our
sold by women for women.
A Zoom shirt.
A Zoom shirt. Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you for indulging us with a little bit of the banter here to get the nerves out. Good almost afternoon to everyone. 11:32. If you're my daughter, it's afternoon. It's lunchtime. So if you hear her in the background, I apologize. But my name is Mandy Shoemaker. I am formerly the director of the Women's Center at the University of Cincinnati, and I currently serve as the director of education and training for the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals here in Cincinnati. I am here with a good friend of mine, Dr. Jane Soika, a professor in the Department of Marketing at the Lindner College of Business. Many of you have tuned in because you know of or you have taken a class with Dr. Soika, and she teaches women in sales. She's also, as if teaching and research, et cetera, is not enough to fill her plate, she is the undergraduate program director of marketing and professional selling in the Lindner College of Business. I have the privilege of knowing her as Jane, and want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Jane, what are you up to these days?
We're figuring out how to figure out the Zoom business. Okay, so thank you, Mandy, for the introduction. That was great. And it's so good to see you. So good to see you, and I appreciate Jamie and Lauren, who is a former student, also arranging this. So it's a great morning.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to say before I turn my camera off and let the conversation begin, for our friends who are just joining, just FYI, if you did not hear Lauren here, or if you didn't hear Lauren say, we are recording this meeting so that we can use it for future stuff. And if you have questions throughout the discussion, please feel free to use the chat feature, and we'll try to get to those in our time together. So I am signing off. Take it away, ladies.
Yes.
Perfect. I have a list of questions, Jane. I know there may not be time to get through all of them, but I want to encourage folks to utilize the chat function too, because Jane and I spent some time prepping for this and thought, oh, what could we talk about? And what is really important to us too is, what do you want Jane to touch on when we're discussing perfectionism and how it manifests itself in all of our lives. So I think a good place to start, if you're comfortable, Jane, would be how does one get involved in studying perfectionism as a professor of sales?
Yeah. What's a nice girl like me doing in a place like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a really, really good question. And let me just start that with one of my favorite lines from Elizabeth Lesser is, you teach that which you need to learn. Okay. And so the reason why I am teaching the dangers of perfectionism is I experience them and I live them out firsthand. Hi, my name is Jane. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Okay. And the operative word is a perfectionist, operating. Okay. I'm working on it all the time. But in my study of teaching women women to sell because they have a very different style than men do. I came across a statistic from Hewlett Packard. It's a pretty common statistic. Some of you may have already heard it, but it took my breath away. And the question was, and I use it in class all the time, you have a list of attributes when you apply for a job. Okay, this happened to be internal. Okay, so they say, you have a college degree and you want this major in this and this experience. How many attributes do you have to have before you apply for the job? Okay, fair enough. Well, it turns out men, 60%. So, a little over half. Yeah, we'll put our resume in. We'll try it. Women, it had to be 100%. 100%. We had to be perfect before we would apply. And that every time I say that, it's just like a punch to the gut because we're holding ourselves back. When we don't apply, we hold ourselves back. And and so I would see that. I would see that in classes where I would tell you, you really ought to apply for a sales position.
How many did you buy?
We just have a little bit of feedback. Is it
Are
you on mute?
I wonder if everybody is on.
We spent about $100 on Pop-In, I think he said.
I don't know how. There should be a way for us to mute everyone but us.
Everyone should be muted on entry. I'm going to go through right now and just double check.
Okay.
Perfect. Good deal.
Thanks.
Jane, that sits with me, the need to fulfill 100% of the requirements listed for a position to apply for it. And I wonder too, if we can use the chat function too, to engage some of the folks on here. If you have had that lived experience where you saw a job position that you were really interested in, but you said, really, I only 80%. So I'm not going to apply for that. And that's very, very interesting. So, does that kind of manifest itself in the classes that you teach with the women in sales, and you see students talk about, like, share that kind of testimonial too?
It does. And before I answer that, let me go back to why this problem why this statistic is such a problem. And one is, you'll never get the job if you don't apply. And that sounds so straightforward, but you will never get the job if you don't apply. And I'm not saying you're going to get every job you apply for, okay? But you've got to put your application in. And so there's enough people trying to hold us back. We don't need to hold ourselves back. And I do see that in students where I would say, you got to apply for the sales job. Oh, no, I don't have enough experience. It's like, excuse me, I'm the sales expert here, and I am telling you, you've got what it takes. I mean,
you're taking it personally. They're professional.
It is. But the other thing that I think this is a real reframe for women, and we need to really rethink this. Who loses besides the individual who doesn't apply? Well, you know what? It's the organization. If I'm a manager and I've got some person over here with 60% and he applies, and I've got a person over here with 75% of the qualifications, but she's not going to apply because she's not perfect, the organization loses. And I think we need to reframe that because women are helpers. We love to help people. And we need to think about, wait a minute, they're going to miss out on my 75%. This happened in class. You'll love this. We had a recruiter, and I had done this lecture. Okay, so the students knew this. We had a recruiter come in, and I had a woman raise her hand and say, well, I don't have all the qualifications. Should I apply? And I'm sitting there, like, ready to just blow my, like, yes, apply. And the recruiter said, well, of course you should. Male. Well, of course you should apply. These are ideals. We don't expect anybody to have the ideal. So here we are, we're holding ourselves back, trying to make an ideal that nobody ever intended anybody to fit. So it's a bad situation, and something that can be fixed.
Well, nor do you know if your interpretation of meeting a qualification is the same as someone else's interpretation of what type of transferable skills you have. And I see in the chat function popping in here, some folks are saying like, yes, absolutely, I've had this experience. And some are saying, I don't think I've ever stopped myself from applying for a job. And you have to wonder, is that nature or is that nurture? And I think we'll talk a little bit about that here, because for some of us, there may be points in time that we can very distinctly point out and say, this was an experience I had. This is a question that came in beforehand, before we started, that we'll answer later on. But like, what specific experiences in your life that could be considered failures maybe hold you back in the future? And I think it's so important to reflect on and let yourself feel that. But then moving forward, Jane, you study this all the time. You talk to students about this. It's resiliency, and it's an art. It is a practice. It is, you know, when you think what women think in their head, and not just women, but anybody who is thinking about applying for a new job, I think there's an element of fear there, because we are looking for an extrinsic validation. And if we don't get a job, then the automatic thought is, wow, I didn't meet a benchmark. You know, I didn't meet a standard, or what will other people think of this?
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of things that you said. Fear of failure, and it's well documented in research that women have a greater fear of failure than men. We've replicated it in my classes. No surprise. You know, and to your point, this is very recent Harvard Business Review article. 40% of women who are turned down from management positions do not apply again.
Wow.
That's a killer, because the thing is once again, I'm not saying you're going to get it every time you apply. When I tell my students to negotiate, I teach them, like, I'm not saying you're going to get everything you ask for, but I guarantee you, if you don't ask, you will never get it. And chances are you're going to have to ask more than once, and that is the resiliency. And once again, research shows, and we documented it in my article that just got published, women tend to have lower resiliency than men, and I don't really care why. I think because, you know, that's for the theorists to deal with. You know, I think, you know, it could be junior high, it could be parents, it could be society. But here's what I do know, is that resiliency is a teachable skill, because that's what we teach in women in sales, because you have to be resilient. If you're going to be in sales, you are going to have to be resilient. The reality is, if you're going to be in life, you are going to have to be resilient, and you cannot let perfectionism hold you back. So, you know, I think that's very important.
Jane, we're getting some comments that you're cutting out a little bit. If you can literally and figuratively lean into this discussion, that may help us a little bit. But that you know what is fascinating.
Okay, I that should be better. Thank you. Can you hear me better now?
My gosh, crystal clear. Again,
good. Okay,
perfect.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
So why don't we talk a little bit about, I mean, when you think of the job market, that's a really great, it's a really great petri dish to kind of look at perfectionism as it happens. But just in general in life, why is this so dangerous? I mean, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum because it's a lived experience that we both have. But many folks, I think, believe that if they strive to achieve an ideal that is defined as perfectionism, that it's a good thing. It's our society has indicated that, you know, we want to be perfect. We'll read magazines to be perfect, to look like people, to be like people, to have a closet that looks like none of which I have. But why is this so dangerous?
And let me back up a minute, because where I think the perfectionism comes in, I think what perfectionism really is a mask to mask our fear of failure. And unfortunately, and there are several I call them self-limiting behaviors that we and women tend to do this more than men, because we're more afraid of failing than men are. Control is one. I'm guilty of that one too. People pleasing, right there, and perfectionism, because it's a treadmill, because we think or a rat race, because what we think is, well, if I'm perfect, I'm not going to fail. Well, the reality is the only way you're never going to be perfect, because it's like chasing the horizon. You will never be perfect, and you're never going to fail because you're not going to try anything. So you're on this continual, this loop that it never, you're stuck. You're going to be stuck. So that's why, perfectionism is so dangerous. A couple of other reasons. I've kind of hinted at these before. Number one, if you wait to be perfect, you will never do anything, because you're never going to be perfect. And we have a joke. We have a joke in my profession. What do you call the person who wrote the worst dissertation? And I quickly tell my students, don't you dare say Dr. Soika, although probably my dissertation is right up there. No. What do you call the person who wrote the worst dissertation? Doctor.
Doctor.
It doesn't have to be a great dissertation. It has to be
say it in law school.
Right?
It's you try, you do your best, and the irony of it is school, graduate school, and performance evaluations that work to a certain extent, but there are all kinds of methods put into place that help our mindset think in a way that's I'm going to be judged or graded or assessed on something. And so when you're in school, I remember thinking like it has to be an A, and if it's not an A, I might as well walk around with an A minus on my forehead. Right. And people might as well know that minus holds so much weight. And it really wasn't until I got out of schooling that I started looking around and thinking like, actually, I really like to be friends with people, and I really appreciate that I can be kind, and nobody gets an A+ in friendship and love and support and kindness, and that wasn't a school subject either. So it's okay that, and I'll disclose this very transparently, that I got a C in civil procedure. And I don't practice now.
So
perhaps it was a fabulous failure or challenge, obstacle. But I love what you're saying about self-limiting, because think of how many things, and I would love to see the chat function too. How many things did you not try? And now you think, wow, I could have been, I wonder.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because as I teach, and I teach, the beauty of UC is I teach a gamut of students. Believe it or not, the ones with the biggest challenge to learn resiliency and overcome perfectionism, the smarter you are, the more difficult it is. And I do a lot of workshops with medical students. And I mean, PhD is tough, law school is tough, but I don't think we hold a candle to medical school. Okay, so these are brilliant people, but they have never failed. They've always been at the top. And so when they do, somebody dies, or now they're at the top of the top of the top. It's very unsettling for them, because they've never failed. I mean, failure you've got to learn how to process failure, and that's the resiliency is the antidote of failure. Because if you're resilient, if you can bounce back from failure, you're going to try something. And as I tell my students towards the end of the class, where they have to ask for the clothes, once again, you're not going to get the sale unless you ask for it. No one's going to say, oh, I want to buy this. No, you have to say, well, I can start your delivery on Monday. How does that work? You have to ask for it. And what's the worst that can happen? They say no. Nobody dies. That's the resiliency. If you're a perfectionist, you're not going to take a chance on asking.
And I do embrace that no that you hear. Someone in the chat just mentioned that there can be a fear of judgment and a fear of exclusion. And I want I want to sit with that, because that's so true. And I think I was conditioned as a young person to think that I needed to garner acceptance and approval from people. And so if I hear the no based on my sales pitch, what am I feeling? Am I feeling like someone said no to my sales pitch? I probably, for many years of my life, felt like someone was saying no to Mandy Shoemaker. Like they looked me right in the, and if they really liked me enough, if I really sold it enough. But the fact of the matter is, when you think about somebody coming to your door or shopping, and somebody says, hey, what about this? And you just don't like it, you just say, nah, it's not me. You don't say, like, specifically to a salesperson, like, why would you have thought that would have been of interest to me?
Yeah.
And so it's something that we personalize. And the more often that we get used to hearing the word no and not taking it personally, or learning from the impact that our action had on someone else rather than our intent, I think that can really help us think, this is a point in time. I've heard no, I'm going to try it again. It's hard.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's practice.
Recovering. Okay. I think another thing that makes perfectionism so dangerous is that it causes burnout, because once again, you never get there, and you drive. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. One of my favorite quotations is, excellence does not require perfection. Yeah. You can be excellent and you don't have to be perfect, but you will drive other people crazy. And I'm like you. What did I learn from my PhD program? I learned how to take a breathe. And that was darn hard, because you don't get to a PhD program being an average student. You're an A student. You're a good student. But I had 3 small children. I had an hour commute. That's just, women do what we have to do. And I could have gotten that A, but it would have not at the sacrifice of my family.
Right. What are your values?
And exactly. And so I think the burnout is very dangerous. And one of the trends I'm seeing is women are starting to make inroads in entry level into professions. I mean, in DAP, it's more women entry level than men. Banking is another one where entry level women are getting in. But the problem in both of those professions is women are not making it to the top. Well, if we're holding ourselves to perfectionist tendency, if we've got to be perfect, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be exhausted. There's one of my favorite New York Times article. I love the title of it. I had to go back and reread it because I don't remember what's in it, but I had to go back. And it is, there's no extra credit at work. And the perfectionist mindset is, okay, I've got, and I see this in class all the time, I've got a 94. I'm going to do extra credit so I can have a 96.
Yeah.
And the point is, the difference between a 91% and a 99% is a life.
Yeah.
Is a life. And so I think the perfectionism is also self-limiting, because when you put way too much pressure on yourself, you're going to collapse. And one of my favorite examples, I had a student who was a waiter, and she, we practice failing in my class. Practice failing, you can get over it, and you get over being perfect.
That sounds like a day I would have called out sick.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. So she delivered the wrong pizza to the table. Okay. And the people said, you know what? They're all good pizzas. We like this pizza too. It's okay. Da, da, da. So, and she said, they gave me a great tip.
Wow.
But she said, in her reflection, I spent the entire shift blaming myself and saying, how could I be so stupid? I can't believe I messed up in the word. Da, da, da. And my point to her was, wait. Your customer's fine. They had a great pizza. Why are you still? They're not beating you up. You're beating yourself up. And I think that's that perfection. I think that's perfectionism. Also, I think also the other thing besides driving you burnout and driving other people crazy. And you and I talked about this one, and this one I'm still working on. I think this is a pride and a humility issue. Perfectionism prevents us from delegating, and that is another. That's another burnout, because you know what? You can't have it all and you can't do it all.
No, there's literally not enough time in the day. And I moderated a student panel, I think, a little under a year ago, and we were talking about what do you do to be successful? And all of these phenomenally just brilliant, hardworking, thoughtful, introspective, intersectional women. I mean, this was just an amazing panel. Nobody said delegate. And I thought it resonates with me, because honestly, I don't do it very well.
No.
And it's because of control. It's a lot of it because of control, but also you know that if you delegate, then if something isn't done to your specifications, it's going to be reflected upon you, but that doesn't make you a good manager or a good supervisor. It doesn't allow you to help others learn and grow. Like, what if we shared? What if the reason why women aren't in more leadership roles is because women in leadership roles aren't delegating and giving people the opportunity to have the opportunity to not be a perfectionist, or to experience something and overcome a challenge. And yeah, that hit.
I think that delegating, and I've got a funny example, and I've got a real example. A funny example was this weekend, and I was complaining that my mother doesn't accept help. And then one of my daughters, who is probably listening, so she's going to remain anonymous, mentioned, well, Mom, you don't take help much either. And it's like, oh, and so I channeled Brene Brown and said, how would Brene Brown handle this? Well, tell me more. I was like, well, you always unload the dishwasher, or you always reload the dishwasher after we load it. And it's like, well, we all know there's only one way to load the dishwasher. And I think that's a perfectionism, right? It's like, if it isn't my way, it's wrong. Well, I learned this, or I'm practicing this when I get a lot of demand on campus, especially students for resiliency, teach us resiliency. So there was a talk for a sorority, and there's just no way I could work it out, but it was from one of my students. And I said, you know what? You know this material. I'll give you the slides and everything. You can teach this. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, of course, it's not going to be as good as the way I teach it. And I'm well, you know what? The reality is, it went better, because helping peers is even more effective with this than a professor helping students. And it was like, whoa. It was a win-win. I empowered the women. I got the message out, but you got to, and did she do it? No, she didn't teach it the way I would have taught it.
Right.
But it was okay. And I think that also goes into a mindset of abundance. Scarcity says there's one job, there's one win, there's one, and then everyone else loses. Abundance is, you know what? There are lots of ways to load a dishwasher, Jane, and it's all okay. And it's
my
all okay.
husband is going to be thanking you for this, because I think that's one of our sticking points at home. He actually, coincidentally, he's the perfectionist about that. But so for those of us on the call thinking, okay, how do I change it? This is the way that my brain is wired. And I just want to do everything the best, and I want to do it right. My answer to that question really briefly is try to have a little person in your life, because there is no such thing.
It's very humbling. Yeah. I've eaten every word I've ever.
You learn that really quickly. But when you think about what advice you would give for folks who are attempting to aspirationally become recovering perfectionists, what would you say to them?
A couple of things. First of all, I do believe knowledge is power. And once you start looking for, oh my goodness, am I doing this because it's the right thing, or am I just being a perfectionist and a control freak? Let it go. Okay. And be willing. So I think knowledge is power. One of my favorite sayings is, failure is an event, not a person. Failure is an event, not a person. Just because I didn't, I failed, it's not I'm still smart. I'm still articulate. I'm still kind. I just didn't do as well as I should, as I could have. Okay. So I think just being aware of it is a good one.
Second, it's a point in time. I like that.
Point in time, and it's an event, not a person. I like to practice doing things I'm no good at, because the perfectionist in me would only take courses I knew I could get an A in. If I was, no, too much math, I'm going to do, So purposely, I now do things I'm no good at. So this summer, I've been swimming. Now, first of all, putting on a bathing suit at my age, that's an act of courage, okay? Forget climbing Mount Everest. It is a bathing suit, okay? And then I just swim. I'm not fast. I don't time myself. I'm slow as molasses. It doesn't matter.
Do you enjoy it, Jane?
I love it, and it feels good. So do something you're not good at, just for fun, okay? Just for fun. Another big one, I think I saw this pop up. I'm letting everybody else pay attention to the chat, but stop comparing. I just can't. Once again, women, I don't know why we like to compare. Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison robs you of joy. I've heard it a step further, that comparison is death. I mean, that is how much, because the thing is with comparison is there'll always be someone worse off than you. And then you feel like, okay, I'm better. But there's always going to be somebody better. And they are. We're all on our own path. Okay, we're
That
all on our own path.
absolutely.
Put the blinders on. And I think
And
once again, like they're going to do it different. Put the blinders on. No
well, your lived
comparison. Stop
experience
comparison.
lends to that. And I think it wasn't until I started working for the University Honors Program at UC that we started talking about how values relate to, you know, decisions that we make and things that we do and how we decide to spend our time. And I started to notice that, to your point earlier about, am I going to spend this extra time on this assignment or am I going to spend time with my family? My family was it. I mean, it was number one. So I started to notice when there were competing interests, I was more comfortable being graded lower on an assignment that I knew coincided with a very important life event that I had, because I knew that I had invested in what aligned with my values. And that's not to say, you know, a family event came up and then I just didn't do my homework or I didn't go to I didn't follow through on something. But I think that once you really antagonize what your values look like, is it that you value friendship, you value justice, you value success, and what does that look like for you, that you then become less likely to have an extrinsic barometer of your success and need to compare yourself to other people, because you think, I'm being the best version of myself. I didn't get to feeling like that was even an aspirational standard until probably I was like 33. And then I was like, I'm a pretty neat person. And if I can just strive to be the best Mandy, I don't need this other noise, to your point. I love that. Okay.
Yeah, but, and I would also add, for women listening in who may not be working or working outside the home at this stage of the career, boy, they're a perfectionist women, family. There's nothing more pressure. I mean, talk about more pressure that not only are supposed to be perfect on the job, we're supposed to look perfect, we're supposed to be perfect in the classroom, and our kids are supposed to be perfect, and our families are supposed to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Our house. And so I think perfection. It's just there's nothing good about it. There's nothing good. It doesn't go
very intersectional.
Absolutely.
And I think too, in this current situation that we're in, where folks have been asked to be caring for dependents, but also serving as educators who, are you kidding me? I can't, I was thanking my lucky stars that my daughter only needs to know like 2 of the letters of the alphabet, let alone folks who were trying to do math and science. And it just is such an incredible time where we're feeling like humanity is being showcased. And somebody just asked, like, how do we think that perfectionism leads to people pleasing? For me personally, it felt good. It felt like I was more perfect the more people that I pleased. I could think, everybody likes me. And if 10 out of 10 people liked me, then I must be doing it perfect. But along the lines, I started to realize that 10 out of all these different people had different values and different expectations. So if I pleased one person and I pleased this other person who had very different values and expectations for me, then really I hadn't pleased both of them, because eventually they were going to find out that there was this dichotomy going on. And it was like, it tied into the perfection because I wanted everyone to think I was nice and good, and that I cared about their interests maybe more than my own at times.
I would add to that. I don't know that there's a sequence there. What I see people pleasing. I see control. I love to control, because if I control, and perfectionism, all is ways. What we're really doing is masking our fear of failure. Okay, we're terrified to fail. We're terrified of being told no, rejection. And I'm working right now with a woman in sales counseling, basically, and she's got the behavior, but in her head, it's every time she gets rejected, oh, I go back out again. I know you do, but your head is telling you, I'm just not good enough. And so I see them all as self-limiting behaviors. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I spend so much time in my class and in workshops and in shows like this, talks like this, because you can change that behavior. You can change that mindset. That's another talk. Okay, how you build resiliency, but you learn it. It's a learned skill, and we've got the data to show that, because that's what my students learn. You learn that. You learn how to become resilient, so that then fear of failure takes away its pain. Now, the other thing I would really encourage people to do, okay, so in terms of you've got to change your behavior and you've got to change your mindset, okay? You got to change your mindset. Do something you're not good at. Stop comparing. Just forget the comparison. The other thing I like to do, practice asking for help and accepting help. And I am not good at any of those. But if you think about it, people love to help. I mean, they really do. They love to help. And how many times have people said, oh, I'm carrying up, books and oh, can I help you? And my thought is, I've had 3 children. I carried 3 kids, a diaper bag and briefcase. No, I can do it myself. And you know what? I deprive them of joy when I don't allow them to help me. And so I would encourage, start asking for help. And the other thing, I'm kind of watching our time here, but the real beauty of learning to give yourself some grace, to say, you know what, I'm not perfect. Failure's an event, not a person. I'm not perfect, but you know what, I'm still a good person. I'm still kind. When I started giving myself some grace, I started extending that grace to other people. And when I was in my perfectionist mode, it's like, well, if I were in charge here, I would be doing this and this and this, and they didn't do their job. But when now it's okay, so it was okay. There was a mistake, but nobody's perfect, and neither am I. And you know what? That gives a lot of grace and a lot of room for experimenting too. Because if you go for perfectionism, you're never going to try something because you might fail. And once again, and then you're stuck. Perfectionism keeps you stuck. You don't want
my daughter's middle name is Grace, to that point, because very strategically I wanted to remember each time that I felt frustrated, perhaps with myself more so than her or other people, that it is, regardless of the connotation that word has for you, it reminds me to think about extending, assuming positive intent in a lot of cases, but also just for myself, being gentle with myself. There are beauty standards, intellectual standards, job standards, parenting standards. There are neighborly standards. My grass is too long. It needs to be cut. There are just so many standards that we hold ourselves to. And that's why I like to get to know people so well, because when you know what their personal circumstances are, it helps you think about, wow, this isn't just a cut and dry situation where they acted in a certain way or they didn't perform in a certain way because they're not being perfect. It's like, it's life. And in the comments we had, or in the chat, somebody asked, how do you not people please when your job or your livelihood depends on it? And I think when you think about kind of bifurcating people pleasing from like being assertive, which is a word I like to use rather than aggressive, when you think about sharing your needs and your values, if you can say to someone like, I appreciate the feedback that you've given me, or I appreciate that you set this expectation and you believe I haven't met it, but I need to share with you how I feel. I'd like to talk to you about, what's going on in my head. And if you make it personal, I think that starts to a practice starts where you validate yourself and you start to feel like, wow, how I feel about something matters, not just an extrinsic marker I set for myself. It's, I have worth and I have value. And just because I do something that it might be adjudicated that I had failed or that I wasn't as successful as possible, I'm trying. And to your point, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to ask for help. Maybe that's a great area when someone's giving you feedback and you feel like, well, I'd really like to be a people pleaser and say, yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Let me fix that. But I want to say to them, I did the best I could and I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
I think the people, I think it's a really good question. Thank you for asking that question. I think, and this is why I kind of teach confidence so much when I teach my classes. Once again, I look at the behavior and then what's underlying that behavior. And I really think if you look at people pleasing, the root fear is they're not going to like me. I'm going to fail. I'm not going to be promoted. And in fact, another activity I do, in fact, I was doing it this morning. I pull it out and I encourage my students to do it every day, is to say, what are you afraid of? And that sounds like a really simple question. And when I started doing that, it was like, well, I'm not afraid of anything. I live in a safe neighborhood and I have a safe car. And, you know, because my tendency is to think of, okay, life threatening. But you know what? I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid I'm going to forget about an assignment. I'm afraid I'm going to forget to prepare my students for the sales role plays that are coming. I'm afraid I'm going to drop the ball. I'm afraid somebody won't like me. And so the people pleasing, I think you need to look really deep and really hard. And that's a whole nother talk on, you know, what are you afraid of? Okay. And the thing we know about confidence, because confidence, once again, confidence, there's no comparison in confidence. Confidence is, I can do this. It doesn't say you're going to be the best. It doesn't say you're going to, you know, it doesn't say you're going to win. It just says, I can do this. Okay. I can do this. And you learn confidence by practicing. And you know, you start small, you practice, you get a small win, you up the thing. And the confidence, you know, my guess is that underneath that people pleasing is fear that I'm not good enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough by whose standards? And once again, I cannot stress enough when I have my students do their resiliency journal where they have to record, this is where I failed. I have them 8 strategies for bouncing back quickly, being resilient. And then how did that work? Did you bounce back quickly? Another thing I add is note, was it someone telling you failed, or is it you letting yourself down? And I am telling you 99% of the time, it is you letting yourself down. I ate the entire roll of Girl Scout cookies. You know what? Nobody else cares about that but me. But I beat myself up. And so, you know, it's a head game. But I would take it back to confidence.
Yeah.
To confidence.
We had a question before when the email was sent out to register. We had some folks write in with questions, and I think one of them that stood out to me that I'm very curious about you personally, Jane, is can you talk about a specific time that you feel that you failed and it ended up being something that was a really important learning experience for you?
Yeah. And I did see that. I think it's from a former student. I remember her. I love her. I'm so glad she asked that question. It's a really good question. And I don't use this example in class very often. If you see my TED Talk, I use other examples. And if you want to talk about failure, we'd be here all day. Okay. I've that many times. Okay. But when I was at another school, I was coming up for full promotion and I didn't get it. I mean, I was everything was right in line. Who knows? I didn't get it. And there's probably some gender inequity in there, but that's not the point. Okay. The point is, I spent a year and a half ruminating, wanting revenge. Should I sue? Should I appeal? I'm just going to leave. Like, who did this? And what was my fault? And I'm ruminating, like, what am I supposed to learn? That a year and a half of just vengeance and anger. I mean, cognitive energy, emotional energy. And finally, like after a year and a half, and I'm just in emotional turnover and fight and da-da-da-da, a dear friend of mine, male, a dear friend of mine, sat me down and said, Jane, there's one option you've never thought of. And I'm thinking, wait, sue, appeal, leave. What am I missing here? I said, Jane, look at what they were asking for. Do what they're asking you to do and apply again. Never crossed my mind. I know. I mean, it's funny now. This was a year and a half. Never even crossed my mind to apply again. Of course, I could do what they wanted. It's easy. Never crossed my mind. That is a lack of resiliency. And that was when, you teach what you need to learn. I needed to learn resilience. I didn't need to learn the politics or the whatever. Okay. You can't control your circumstances, what goes on. In fact, I would maintain there's very, very little we can actually control. We think we control a lot more than what we do. There's very little we can control.
Absolutely.
But we can control how we react to it and what's going on in our mind. We can control what we think. And that was really powerful. I let the circumstances control me instead of me controlling. You know what? I am still a good teacher. I am still a good researcher. I do a good job. And boom, boom, boom. Here are my action steps. So yeah, I needed to learn resiliency, which is probably why I'm so passionate about teaching women of all ages, not just I focus on young women because I'm a college professor, but women of all ages are demanding this information. It's a teachable skill. Everyone can learn. Everyone can learn to be resilient, to overcome their fear of failure, and to learn confidence. And that's then that's it. That's what you need. That's what you need.
You mentioned Brene Brown. Do you have a certain reading that you might recommend for folks? I think when I watched your TED Talk, if those on the call have not watched your TED Talk, I think it's a rousing kind of tribute to the idea that you really can do anything, and you really can, if you focus on what about your tendency to undercut yourself aligns with perfectionism, and you start to recognize it, you can change your behaviors. I watched that before a job interview, actually, because I thought this is really a reminder to me. So that's certainly something I would recommend to folks, but I love Brene Brown too. If folks have any suggestions they want to throw into the chat.
I've heard from several of my students, they watch the TED Talk before a job interview, so I love that. I totally love that. Brene Brown, it's all good. It's all good. But one of the exercises I learned from her that I will use in class, and this goes back to people pleasing and the perfectionism, because it's all tied together. She gives people a 1-inch square of paper. I do a little bit more. 1-inch square of paper. It says, write down the names of people whose opinions matter to you. Okay, now, square inch, you can't get very many. And that is a really good thing to remember, because there's a lot of people that, I'm trying to please. You know what? Their opinions really don't matter to me. There's a core. I've got a core of like 45 really good friends, my husband, my family, and that's whose opinions matter. So I think I love Brene Brown. I think we're just about out of time too.
I do too.
Yeah. So sign off.
I think that works. Jamie and Lauren, you didn't see anything in either the chat or beforehand that
No, I think you did a great job of incorporating some of that, and you read my mind with the Brene Brown. I was thinking, after this for folks, we can send out the recording of this and maybe some resources if people are still, I think you gave us a lot to think about, and hopefully this isn't the last time we're able to hear from you ladies.
I hope not. We had a great time. We had a great time doing that. Partners in crime, I think.
I think a book club is in order. I mean, I've got what you could see behind me. There's several titles, and we can make it non-academic or academic, whatever you feel like. So I really appreciate it. And thank you, Jane, for your time, because I can't imagine getting prepped for the fall semester being partially remote and partially in person and all kinds of things going on. But thanks to everyone who tuned in too, because this is, if we don't start talking about this kind of thing, it will just continue. I feel like there are so many folks, women or gender minorities, men, regardless of how you identify, just intersectionally, the lived experience of perfectionism is stifling like such important conversations about our humanity and how we can support each other. So to that end, if there's any way that I personally can support anyone that was on this call, I'm more than happy to do that. And you can get my contact information pretty easily from Jamie or Lauren.
And same here. Jamie and Lauren, thank you so much. Lauren, I'm so glad you were one of my students and you thought of me for this. So thank you.
Of course. Like I've mentioned before, Jamie and I were very excited to have you and Mandy present on this topic, and we thought it went very well. So thank you both so much.
Thank you, and thank you, Mandy. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I will sign off.
All right, bye, ladies.
Everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the week. Take care.